Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mary McCoskey. I'm a volunteer with the Minnesota Music Coalition. And we have been hosting these workshops every week to try to bring information, support, help to all the musicians that are, going through crazy time. And so this is our first songwriting one, which is very good. We've been focusing a lot on business, and the other ones mostly like live streaming, different streaming platforms. So this is our first creative workshop, which is great because it's just as important as the business stuff. And I know a lot of musicians have been struggling with creativity right now. Either they're writing so much because they have so much going on, or it's really hard to even pick up a pencil because it's hard to think in weird, stressful days. So I would love to introduce all you guys first, and then we will start talking about your process. And everybody who's joining us today, please note down in the bottom of the screen is a chat section. Click in the chat if you have a question, if you have information to share with anybody else, if you have friends that pop up that you want to say hi to, use that chat section. We'll be recording this for YouTube, and we will also be recording the chat to save in case anyone posts links to cool stuff, and we can save all that and find it later on YouTube. So there's that. So first of all, I want to welcome our panelists. First, we have Desdamona, and where is she? There she is. Hi. Desdamona is an international award-winning poet and hip-hop artist. She's a recipient of 3 Minnesota State Arts Board Arts Initiative grants. We should be doing a workshop on grants coming up. And has traveled the US and abroad delivering her lyrics and spoken word, also spending her time in traditional and non-traditional classroom spaces, working in over 300 schools, prisons, and community centers in the US and France. She co-founded Be Girl Be, the first of its kind celebration of women's contribution to hip hop culture. She's been featured in a national ad campaign for Kmart, which was adorable. So, and has been commissioned by the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra to create lyrics for the Northside celebration in 2017. Desdamona's most recent release is entitled No Man's Land and features an all-woman cast of singers, poets, and MCs from the Twin Cities. And it's awesome, so listen to it if you get a chance. Our next panelist is Gigi Amal. And is it Amal? Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, great. You're still muted, Gigi, I think. So you're just gonna unmute as you talk. Okay, gotcha. Gigi has been playing music, singing, and writing songs since she was about 5 years old, so that's ambitious. Her first original song was written about boy trouble, which seems pretty valid. Since then, her writing and lyrical style has evolved to portray the ups and downs of life and connects with people on a deeper level through music and pensive lyrics. Pre-quarantine era, you could find her on various stages throughout the Twin Cities as one of the UkuLadies, a ukulele duo that plays covers, originals, and unique mashups. And our last but not least, Grace McCrady is also a ukulele. Hello, Grace. She's a Minneapolis-based singer-songwriter, and her songwriting can be described as realistic yet optimistic, blending storytelling with imagery to create a relatable experience for listeners. Grace is best known for being co-founder of the UkuLadies. The UkuLadies gained notoriety after placing second place, performing their original music at the Americana Roots Contest at the 2019 Minnesota State Fair. And in normal times, can be seen in venues throughout the cities. So we look forward to normal times and seeing all you guys at venues throughout the Twin Cities again. It will be so delightful. So our first question that we have is, it's a question for all you guys, and just pipe in as you feel like it. The question is for how did you start writing, and what was your process like, and how has it changed over time? Anyone want to go first?
I'll hop in.
Yes, thank you.
I love this question because I think it's going to be, we're all going to have such different answers. So I'm more excited to just answer quick and then hear everyone else's answer. But for me, songwriting started as a young child. I like would walk around and write songs about what was happening. Like, I'm walking to the kitchen, and like anything would become a song. And I just knew at a very young age that that was something that made me happy, to create music about everything. So even as like a young kid, I remember I actually wanted to be sick, but I wasn't sick. And so I wrote a song about being sick. And it was like a really literal song. I was probably 5 or 6 years old when I wrote it. But I think it was like, if you're feeling really grumpy and your head hurts really, really bad, you're sick. You're sick. And I wrote that song to convince my parents that I was actually sick, but I wasn't at all. I was well enough to sit at home and write a song about it. But it really started young, and it was a way for me as a growing human to adapt and cope with, heartache and feeling left out, or wanting to be sick but I'm not, or whatever it was. I was able to write music and kind of cope with life through that. And I wrote throughout my whole life, and it wasn't until my 30s when I started to actually look at it more with the support of the UkuLadies, and start to nurture that a little bit and dive into it a little bit deeper. So it's been an ongoing, lifelong, and also really new discovery for me.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going next?
I can go.
Desdamona, you want to? Yeah, there we go. Don't make me call on you.
So, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when I was really young, I wrote a lot of poems and stories, but I didn't grow up in a community where people were performing poems like that. And so it never dawned on me that I could like perform my poetry. So then I was like, but I can perform a song, right? Like I can write a song. So, but I didn't really write any songs until I was I think it was like 14 or 15 years old. And I stole lots of lyrics from other MCs because I was just learning how to do it. I had no idea like about song structure. I mean, I knew there was a chorus, right? But it was like, I didn't know exactly how to write a song. I just was kind of mimicking what I had heard. But it was when I went to college, I it was like a big transitional period, as it is for most people. But I realized like what I was going to school for was not what I wanted to do, and I needed to be creative and I needed to express myself. And I had a best friend who was a singer, and I was very uncomfortable singing, even though I grew up singing a lot, but I never wanted people to hear me. Um, and and so I was rapping, but my best friend is the one who really taught me how to write a song, and just kind of sat me down. And so like I would write a bunch of lyrics, and she'd go, "Okay, we need this, we need this," and and so really just by working and collaborating with her is how I learned, oh, okay, this is what the structure should be like. Um, and so for a long time, we collaborated. She would write the melodies and I would write the words. And then it turned out she had severe stage fright, and like she would break out in hives before going on stage. So that wasn't going to happen. So I was like, oh, well, I better learn how to perform. And so it's been a really, I still don't know that I am a great songwriter. I love to write songs, and I love to experiment with the form of that, and play with bringing in like spoken word, bringing in melody. I sing a little bit. I don't call myself a singer, but it helps sometimes to, you know, add some melody, and especially when you're rapping and it's just words, 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 words. It gives people a little bit of a break. So I really, one of the things I like to in hip hop, sometimes it's just that rapping over the beat, and there's not a lot of dynamic changes. And I really, for me as a songwriter, those dynamic changes are really important. And so that's something that I'm thinking about when I write lyrics, especially hip hop lyrics, because they can be so monotone and so monotonous. And so how can I, you know, take people really for a ride that's not just this, you know? Um, so yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Gigi, what do you got?
Yeah, I like what Desdamona just said about taking people for a ride through your music and through your lyrics. Every time Grace and I start a show for the UkuLadies, we're always like, buckle up. You're going to get happy stuff. You're going to get sad stuff. You're going to get the in-between. I just love that, like, despite experiences that you could have had yourself, you can also write about, you know, experiences you haven't gone through, just kind of based on, if I were this person, how would I feel? Grace and I even recently wrote a song about neither of us, just about someone we imagined up and what her life was like and how she started a family and all this, because we've got a Mother's Day event coming up. So we were writing a song about that. But I started writing music and songs since I was born. My mom is a classical trained pianist and vocalist, and went to conservatory in Russia for like 10 years. And so I wanted to do everything the opposite of that. I wanted nothing to do with classical music. I wanted to be a pop star. My first band I started when I was 5 or 6 years old was with my like young best friend. And I still remember the lyrics to our song. It was like, I need more than just this. It makes me happy when you're there for me, baby. And then later on, I went to like church camp and then started a band while I was there, and then just changed the lyrics of that. I need more than just this. It makes me happy when you're there for me, Jesus. That was when I discovered that, like, you could literally put lyrics to anything and change up songs. A big thing that Grace and I do as the UkuLadies is we take like real songs and we put our own words to them, like create parodies, like to promote shows, to promote workshops, or just we do that for people. Like if they have anniversaries, we'll take a cute song that, you know, means something to them and change it to lyrics about their life and information that they give to us. So my writing style has changed. I write a little less about boy trouble, definitely still write about the troubles of life, but it's a little bit more evolved. I also started, like, I wanted to be like an author when I was younger. I was going to be this amazing book writer. And in like 7th grade, I wrote a book, and I actually ended up, there was this show called Mortified Live where you read like your diaries from when you were younger. And I ended up reading that book, and it was amazing. I read it and was just like, man, I thought this was going to be like the next Beverly Cleary series. Like, it's going to be the best. But, you know, I went back to music after I realized I'm not an author. And it's just, our style has evolved as I've been in different bands. I had one in high school, and then Grace and I met at a bar, and we're like a couple months into our friendship, realized we're both, you know, talented singers. We started with just doing covers, but then we're like, oh, listen to this song that I like kind of made up. And we'd support each other in writing songs. We'd support each other with lyrics, with melodies. And it's just great how your style can evolve as you grow up, as the people that you have in your life come in and out of it, and how they influence what you're writing about and your musical style. I definitely thought I was going to be a pop singer. I recently got a new ukulele, and I call her my country alter ego because she just looks so country. And so I've been writing more songs of that kind of style. I don't know what's happening.
I love that. And you guys collaborate all the time because you're the UkuLadies. And so that's how that works. It's all collaboration. Desdamona, you collaborate with a lot of different artists all the time, but you're your own entity. Can you talk a little bit about collaborating and how you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll talk specifically about the last project that I did because I had lots of guests as part of the project. And so the project is called No Man's Land, and I wanted to create this world for people to not only just listen to, but sort of engage with on a lot of different levels. So I did a lot of different things to try to make that happen. Um, I When I went to everybody who I wanted to collaborate with, I already had something in mind. Over the years in the hip hop community, like I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Hey, let's write a song together." I'm like, "Okay, cool. What do you have an idea or what?" And it would just be kind of like left up in the air. Or I even had someone come to me one time, said they wanted to do a song with me for their album, and then they wanted me to come up with the idea. And I kind of naively just did that. And I thought, this is your album. You need to come up with the idea. Because if I come up with the idea, it's going on my album. And so I did it. And so I wrote the hook to the song and I wrote my verses and then they built off of me. And so so through all my like experiences of working with other people, or a lot of times you can do these like hip hop tracks where it's like, where they call it a posse cut and it's like a bunch of different MCs, but nobody's connected. Nobody's lyrics are connected to each other. And I'm like, okay, so we're all showing off that we can really rap, but where's the thing that like sort of puts it all together? And so when I started this project, I just wanted to be really thoughtful about who I'm asking, why I'm asking them, am I listening to their music so that I know what it is that they do, and that this fits into the concept that I want to build from. And so I feel like if you're inviting someone into a collaboration, the heavy lifting is on you, right? If you should come, yeah, you can come up with a concept together, but if you have a concept for your album already and it needs to fit into that, then it's like your job to sort of go, okay, here's my idea. Do you like that idea? And so my first initial reaching out was to people who I was already connected with, and I was like, so I have this idea for a song, here's the basic idea or the story behind it. Do you think this is something that you could can you get down with this? And 9 times out of 10 the answer was yes, because I was trying to be really like, what is this person's voice, right? Like, what is in their work, and can they come into my song, be themselves and do what they do and have us really complement each other. So that was something that I was like really thinking about in the creation process, and also not being offended or hurt if the answer is no. And just go, okay, so let me see if I can, figure out something better, and then sitting down with that person and kind of working on it. I think like you have to be flexible. You have to be open to other people's ideas when you're collaborating. You have to kind of sometimes let go, of being married to some really specific thing. And I personally feel, that I can create something really cool on my own, but I feel like I together with someone else or with a group of other people, I can create something so much greater because everyone brings their expertise to it. Everyone brings their talent to it. Everyone has something to offer that I could never come up with. I could never think of, oh, I would have never thought of that. It can be something really small. And so for me, working with other people and collaborating really pushes me to be a better songwriter and to listen, right? And to go, okay, what's my specialty, or what's my strong suit? What can I bring to this? And it's a great, I find it's almost like a game. Can we make this song and win the game by making a great song, So I really love to collaborate with other people because I just think it creates something so much greater than I could do on my own.
So Gigi and Grace, when you guys work together and you're collaborating, I mean, if you think someone's idea is bad or you don't like it, I mean, you're still friends, so it must be working for you guys. How does it work to collaborate when it's just the two of you guys all the time?
It's a good
I
question.
think it's both easy and hard.
Do you still write your own stuff on your own?
Yeah, we do. We
Okay.
mostly write our own stuff, but as of recent, we've really been collaborating a lot more. Obviously, even when we write our own stuff, we present it to each other and, look for suggestions. We come up with harmonies together for the most part. But yeah, we have definitely sat down to specifically write stuff together, and we've faced challenges because we have very different writing styles, different very lyrical styles. But we come to each other with love doing this. We know that it's not important what comes out of it, rather than like a good song. Our friendship stays strong, and it's going to be good no matter what, even if it's this lyric rather than this lyric.
One thing that came up is about writer's block. It seems like right now people are either putting out a lot of creativity or they're kind of stuck. This doesn't seem to be a very there's not much status quo going on in this day and age. And when Desdamona was saying about when she's collaborating with other people for her own album, it's almost like they get a writing prompt or a, like, this is my theme and this is what I'm doing. Can you guys talk a little bit about writer's block? Have you had it? What got you out of it? How do you work through it? If you've had it, you didn't quit. So what was your, what are your ideas on that?
That's a good question, Mary. I'll chat about this a little bit because I think it's a very real thing for songwriters to experience, is writer's block and just kind of hitting hurdles when you're creating. Whether it's something that you've got a concept in your mind and it's really, really hard to articulate it, or whether you're just like living life and you're like, I can't come up with anything that could potentially be a phrase or a verse or even like a line of a lyric. And, one thing that I know Gigi and I have leaned into quite a bit recently is a singer-songwriter workshop that is on Facebook. And every 2 weeks they do a different challenge, and it's a one-word prompt usually. Sometimes it's a visual prompt. And that's really kickstarted, I think, both of us in our personal songwriting quite a bit, especially during this quarantine, is because it's so easy to write about the same thing or write about what's really relevant in your life. And, I think back at my songwriting through the years, and it was like, I was going through a breakup. My songs were about heartbreak and then like getting over the breakup and then the recovery of that. And then I fall in love and my songs are very much love songs. And so you can kind of like feel like you're running out of, like, I've been married for a while and things are going well. So like, how do I keep writing about that? So these songwriter workshops are really, really helpful because they take you out of that comfort zone. And for this challenge, like some of the prompts are, gosh, now I'm going to blank, siren was one of them. And one of my favorite songs that I've written is about a siren now. And I never would have thought to write about something like that and be able to tie a personal experience to it, but I was able to. So I think sometimes diving into experiences like that or challenges like that, or even just challenging yourself to pick something and say, I'm going to write about this, and without giving yourself a lot of barriers, sometimes it takes time. Like for the songwriter workshop, we typically have 2 weeks, but sometimes it takes a month for it to come to fruition. And then we'll post it late on the website, and we're proud of it, and it's still there, and it still became a thing. And so it's definitely a journey, and it's not something that you can just like say like, okay, today I'm going to write a song. Sometimes I've got songs that have taken 4 years to fully write.
I love that it can take 4 years, but you circle back. You don't abandon it. It's still there. It's still floating around, and you pick the baby back up and let it live. And I love that. Yeah. Thanks for finishing the song. Yeah. I'm trying to think here. Gigi, any ideas for writer's block?
Yeah, I agree with Grace. Having that songwriting challenge has been really good for us because it gives us a topic that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise, because a lot of times we draw on our own experience to write songs. So I really enjoyed, one of the topics was zebra, and you don't necessarily have to use that word, but you can take that word and consider, what does it make you think of? What other things does it make you feel? And zebra made me think of like stripes, and then I thought of tiger stripes, and then I wrote a song about being a mom. And so it had literally nothing to do with zebras, but that was where it brought me to. And it's been one of my favorite songs that I've ever written because I wrote it for my son. But also it's like, you can also draw on an imaginary person to write a song. You can make up a story about a person, write some facts about them, or just like start a free writing thing. I really love just brainstorming and taking 3 minutes to just write whatever comes to your head. Maybe something will come of it. Maybe you'll catch a few words that then lead you into a phrase, and then a song comes of that. But you really, like Grace said, give it the time that it deserves, but also know that you can put it on a shelf and come back to it anytime. It's like a dying plant that you revive when you remember about it. And you're like, sorry, plant, but like, please be green soon. And then, it's resilient, it does its thing, and eventually you've got an orchid that blooms, because I actually did that with an orchid just now. Like it's blooming, but I for sure thought it was dead.
Desdamona, what is the longest you've gone through a writer's block spell, if you ever have? And what did you do about it? What was your strategy?
So I don't consider it writer's block. I consider it, I feel like we have seasons, right? We have really prolific seasons where we can't stop. And then we have these seasons where we are like living, we are having the experiences or absorbing and sort of processing stuff. And for me, that's how I look at it. And I try to like not control it and just be like, okay, but when I can feel when I'm about to write a song. It's weird to say that, but it's like I've got ideas in my head throughout my day, and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'm just like, okay. So it's almost like it's marinating in there or whatever, and it just needs time. And so I do practice writing, but I don't sit there and go, oh, I have to write every single day. I have to write every day to make sure that I'm a good writer and all of this. I think the key for me is when the inspiration hits, you better be ready and you better get it out, because it will also disappear. And so tapping into that moment and not letting it slip through, um, and I think like I teach a lot of writing workshops. They're usually based in spoken word. And so I'm constantly around other writers and hearing what other people are saying. And oftentimes a line, phrase, whatever will prompt, just like you were saying, Gigi, like this whole other thing, right? You hear this word or this phrase, and then it's like whoosh, like it goes somewhere else. And so I think a lot of it is really about recognizing when the inspiration hits you and running with it, stopping whatever it is you're doing and taking the time to write it down or type it, whatever it is, and not getting super uptight about when it's not coming, because you can do it and you know that it does come. It's just you got to prepare for when it's coming. So you practice and you do these things. So when the time comes and that inspiration hits, I'll be able to do it because I'm practicing. I don't know. I think like for me, I need it to be a natural, not forced process. Forced for me, I don't write stuff that I like. And I many times, like I was saying before, like I feel it right here, that like, okay, there's something like, it's coming. Like, it's, I don't know. And I can also, when I'm writing, feel it when I'm writing a song that I'm like, oh, this is good, you know, like this is a good song. And one that is maybe needs work, you know, is a little bit more tedious and I have to keep coming back to it. That's why you keep all your writing, right? And if I'm stuck, I have pages and pages of stuff that I could sift through and go, oh, there's a good line. Let me start with that. Or let me listen to like my favorite group, because they oftentimes spark ideas in my mind. And so I'll turn that on and just listen. And a lot of times when I write too, if there's a song playing, I'll write down the artist and the song, because I can come back and listen again and find that same like vibe that I was just kind of really rolling off of. So there's lots of little things that I do to kind of make it a natural process for me. Yeah.
It is so interesting to hear about the different processes for writing, because it seems like everyone's process is so different and what inspiration means to them is so different. I heard about a poet, I can't remember her name, but she had been working in the field. She was a kid on a farm and working in the fields with her parents. And she could feel a poem coming across the fields. And if she ran fast enough and got to the house and got a pencil, by the time it caught her, she could write it down. But if she didn't get there in time, she could feel it blow past her and go look for a different poet that was prepared. And the person telling that story was like, that has never happened to me in a million years. I have to sit down at my desk every day at 9 o'clock and be ready to write. And so the processes can be so different. And it's like you said, like you feel inspired. And if people are trying to write songs and they don't feel that mystical inspiration, how do you keep going? Does anyone have set office hours where you are going to like, I am going to sit down and try writing right now? And any of you guys do that at all? Or is that a book author sort of a thing?
I don't do it for writing necessarily, because I agree that it has to like be present, even if it's a prompt that I wasn't picking. You know, I need to let it simmer, like you were saying, and then I'll have an idea, and it'll be like, okay, I have to write this down right now, or I have to like grab my ukulele and do this. But yeah, when it comes to like planning it out, I don't think that anything would come into fruition if I sat down and I was like 9 a.m, this is when I have to create. I can do that more for practicing songs that have already been created. That feels really good to have that structure, but it really needs to just like pop in and then into the hand or out of the mouth kind of experience.
Interesting. It's really, as a non-songwriter, non-musician, it's always fascinating to see how that can hit. I have never had any kind of, creative inspiration hit me. So the people that have it, I think you guys are born with it. And I want you to keep doing it, because good Lord, the rest of us need it so bad, but we can't do it for ourselves. So another question I have was, like Desdamona said, when she started, she was borrowing heavily from other musicians. How much of that do you guys do, or did you do when you were starting? And I don't know. It's kind of funny. My son's band, they wrote a song, they played it for me, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys wrote Round and Round by Rat. And they're like, what? And I'm like, did Jeff grow up listening to a lot of Rat? You guys wrote Round and Round. I could sing it over their song. And they hadn't realized, they went and listened to it like, damn, we wrote a Rat song. Because they probably grew up listening to it. It was in their brain someplace. And then the song they wrote was so similar. Have you guys ever like written a song and said, oh boy, that sounds, or have someone else tell you, you just wrote a Pete Seeger song? And it's like, what? So besides, I can see intentionally borrowing music because it's inspiration and you learn from it and you grow from it. But have you ever accidentally written someone else's song?
I actually recently kind of semi-scrapped a song because I played it and I was like, why does this remind me of something? And it was actually almost like not lyrically the same, but melodically the same as to one that Grace had written like a week prior. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's because her song's been stuck in my head. So like I'm writing one and it's completely different lyrics, but I'm like, dang, like we could literally sing our songs at the same time. And they were different chords even too, but I was like, those are the one and the same. But yeah, like you're definitely going to be influenced by things you've heard, things that are, you know, back in your subconscious that you've never even touched on or thought about in years and years and years. But yeah, definitely when I was younger and a kid, I was like, oh no, this isn't a Britney Spears song. I wrote it. It's different lyrics.
I have a song right now that I'm like, I need to sing to somebody at some point because I'm like, is this my song? Or like I've had a melody stuck in my head and I can't tell if it's one that I've created or if it's something that I heard somewhere. And so that's it. It drives you kind of wild because I can't figure it out. And since obviously if it is a real song that's already out there, I don't know it well enough to know the words, so I've already put words to it and like now it's starting to become mine, but I don't know if it is.
I kind of want to hear it. I think you should sing it for us.
Yeah, I can't think of it right now. It's like it's been simmering deep. If I think of it during this, I'll sing it for you. But
Well, I hope it's your very own so that you can do
it's a good one.
do great things with it.
I think
Desdamona?
yeah, for me, I don't think I've ever recreated someone else's song, but hip hop is definitely one of the musical art forms that borrows a lot from previous existing art. And I do, people might feel a way about sampling, but I think that for me, like sampling is really interesting. And if you can do something creative with something existing and either create a response to that thing, right? Like, or be able to reach more people because it speaks to the generation before, but it's now. And so I think there's just some interesting things that can happen when you sample and you do creative things and make it fresh and new. I don't know, I just think that there's some interesting things that can happen, and there can be this conversation between the past and the present that is really interesting. And then the thing is that because we do remember those old melodies, right? And it's like, oh, I know that, and you if you listen to any popular radio that plays hip hop, you'll hear all of these, like even just one little line of melody or borrowing of something. I think there was something recently borrowed from Michael Jackson, but by a rapper, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that he just did that. Like, and the kids won't know what he's doing, but everybody in these generations will. And it's like, oh, I like that because I feel like it can start a conversation. And I think it creates a conversation also between the original artist and the artist who is creating something now.
It almost feels like you're honoring that person, like the person's honoring Michael Jackson by.
Yeah, it's for me, that is what it is. Like, that is like, I'm, and in a way, like a lot of MCs in particular in hip hop, it's like, part of the thing is you need to know who came before you. And in a way, it's this like, oh, I do. Let me just show you.
Yeah.
So it's also, there's like multiple conversations happening, right? There's the conversation of the music, there's the conversation of the lyrics, and then there's the conversation between the people who know what is happening here, right, between the past and the present, and the people who don't. So I don't know, I think it's so interesting. And I love when people play with that kind of thing.
Well, I can't remember the song now, but they pulled the Suzanne Vega, Tom's Diner, into it. And so the Suzanne Vega fans are listening to this song and being exposed to a whole genre of music they would maybe not have listened to before. And like, this is fascinating. I like that. I like that kind of mashup of genres and honoring the people who came before, because
Yeah,
it's where you learn everything.
Plus, to touch on that, like almost every single style of music has already been done before you. So you're gonna end up sounding like someone. You're gonna end up being influenced by those artists that you've listened to. There's just no way around that. So as long as you're not singing the same exact lyrics and the same exact melody, then you're gonna be channeling someone that reminds someone else of someone they've heard of. They'll be like, oh, you sound like Lana Del Rey in this, or you sound like, this artist. And it's like, you take it as a compliment and be like, yeah, I was influenced by them. Or maybe you weren't at all and you're like, I guess I sound like them, and didn't even know you sounded like Rat.
That was my favorite. They didn't have any idea they wrote a Rat song, and I could sing the whole thing right over the top. It was so great. And it's kind of funny because they're a metal band and I can't get them to listen to the Beatles or the Stones. They don't care at all about the past. And I'm like, knuckleheads, you were writing the past and you don't even get it. But, it's my own kid, so he's not going to listen to me. So why would I bother talking to him? As far as songwriting right now, are you guys writing much about the days we're going through, or are you using your music as escapism from this period of time? Just how do you feel about your writing right now in the time of essentially lockdown?
Well, I definitely have more time for it.
Right.
I think for the first couple of weeks, it definitely follows how I emotionally am feeling about it. So for the first couple of weeks that I was working from home and this lockdown started, I was feeling more fearful and more just, I don't know, I guess like emotionally impacted by it. So I wrote some music kind of to cope with it and just to express like how I was feeling. And as this has gone on, the new normal is more, I'm adapting to it and I'm feeling better every day. And so my songwriting choices have shifted, and maybe they're not related to this, maybe they are, but they're more positive. So now it's a little bit of both, or, but when it really started, it was like I'm writing songs because this is this wild thing that I'm experiencing right now. So much like any experience, I think, if you go through something tough as a songwriter, often you lean into writing about it. Sometimes that's the last thing you do, but that's kind of how I dealt with it.
I felt like my process was the opposite. I was in the beginning of quarantine, like writing very positive, uplifting songs because I'm like, we're gonna get through it. We all gotta get past this. It's just a season of our life. And then now it's been like another 2 weeks of this like at home order. And I'm just like writing songs about getting depressed and other kinds of things. I'm like, it's hitting me hard and I'm feeling it. I mean, still positive in itself, but it's like, I just have these feelings that I have to get out because I'm like, someone else has got to be feeling me on this.
I think for me, I haven't, well, I've written one poem that is definitely connected to what's happening, but thinking about like, before all of this happened, I was in this space where I was working a lot. I was doing a school, like 2 weeks of a school all day long with 7th graders, and then going to events in the evening and performing or doing panel discussions and different things. And I was like, I have no time for myself and I'm not supposed to be living like this. And then boom, suddenly I wasn't living like that anymore. And I was like, oh, wow, this happened, like there's so much opportunity in this moment or in all of these moments, and like what is it, and what is it that I need to learn about myself, and what is it bringing up in me, and all of these different things. And I did write like part of a verse that I'm going to work on, that's also related to this time, but just thinking about like what it is that we can take away from this moment, and in realizing like how much power we really have, right? We can stop everything. Like we can stop everything. Like,
Right.
and so I think that, you know, I mean, and also there is a sadness, a huge heavy sadness if you are paying attention to any of the numbers or anything like that. And so just dealing with that and letting that come out. One of the things I started doing was writing every day. I have just today's rays of light. And so on my Facebook page, I started doing it just for myself to be like, here's some good things. There's always good amongst the terrible wreckage of everything, right? There's always little slivers of light or hope. And I'm like, what are they for me today? And what's interesting is that, you know, it's not a poem, it's not a song, but I do like 4 or 5 of them a day. And I've had many people hit me up about it and say, thank you for doing that. And I'm like, oh, what? I'm like, I was just trying to do, like, put it like, here are the things, and reminding myself every day that amongst all of this difficult, like, restriction and feeling like I can't be myself, I need to get out of here, whatever it is, there are these beautiful things. And it's, you know, noticing those little things. And so that for me has been really beneficial to do. And so, like, yeah, it's not a song, but maybe this will lead to a song. Like every time I write, I feel like it could lead to the song that I need to write. But if I'm not, you know, if I'm not doing it at all, once again, I'm not ready for when it comes, or if it will come to me, you know. Yeah.
I think the thing that will be interesting to see going forward, because like the pandemic from 1918, it disappeared, man. We never learned about it in school. Our grandparents, or at least my grandparents, were born in like 1904. So they lived through it. Not one peep about it, never heard about it. It like disappeared. And it's like, I think if this experience and the memory of it does live on, and, you know, for future generations, and to teach people that it happened, I think it'll be through the creative endeavors. I think it'll be through the music and the art, because man, the people writing the books seem to ignore this sort of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of music and art comes out of this experience, and that hopefully we can remember it and teach the future what it was like through music, if that is what it takes. Because I'm just shocked at how we don't know anything about the first one that blew through. And it's like, how, it's like the hugest tragedy that ever hit America, and we didn't know anything about it, and we still don't know much about it. But yeah, I hope some music that is, you know, your guys' music about the experience you're going through, but the fact that we are going to get through it, I think will be an encouraging note for the future, that we can get through hard things together, and we'll have music to help with that. Here's a question in chat. Have you ever gotten stuck using the same song form over and over? Like you get a form works for you and you just stick with it. And tips on getting outside the verse, chorus, bridge, chorus mentality. How do you get out of that when it's your thing, so all your songs don't sound alike? Anyone want to take that one?
I think you kind of have to take it as a challenge upon yourself. Like now that you have that mentality that like, okay, I write the typical VC type song. I can say it so quickly because I've written that way so many times. I mean, maybe you start by writing a chorus first and deciding that now this is going to come first in the song. And then I'm going to write the rest and start with the chorus actually, and then see what happens from there. Or try a different rhyming pattern to see, okay, maybe I'm going to do like 2 verses and then a bridge and then a chorus and then it ends, you know, like just kind of, you have to challenge yourself to do something different from what you're normally inspired to do. And the more you do it, maybe it's not going to become like the best song you've ever written, but it could inspire something in the future that is going to be different from what you're so stuck normally using, because you're like, oh yeah, you know, I really liked how I did do the chorus first, where I introed with that and then worked my way into a story where the verses are or something like that. So just kind of having the mentality that you're stuck doing that is a great place to start.
So have you noticed that for yourself? Like I've written 4 songs in a row that are starting to sound a lot alike. And
yes, I definitely have. So then I'm like, okay, gotta write something completely different. And sometimes I'm inspired and it ends up being like one of my favorite new songs. And sometimes I'm like, this is going on the shelf.
so Grace, do you notice yourself doing that? Or have you had it pointed out to you that, dude, this song sounds like your last 3 songs?
I find it in my own writing. Like sometimes I feel like I'll go on this trend and look back at my last 3 songs. I'm like, okay, that's the same chord progression on all 3 songs. And so it's a real thing. And I think that's when you have to like really actively think about it a little bit more. But, you know, I also think there's chord progressions that sound good to the ear and that can create a melody that's likable to the ears. And so we're bound to see similarities from song to song, whether it's in our own writing or others. So I try to just like let the inspiration lead it. And I think worst case, if I ended up producing 3 songs that had a similar chord progression, maybe I would be like, which one do I like the most? And pour more energy into that and only play that one at a show, and not necessarily throw away the other ones, but maybe put them on the back burner and like choose to lean into them later. So
Cool. Mix it up.
mm-hmm.
Desdamona, what do you do if you find that you're writing similar stuff over?
I don't tend to write. I don't tend to do it. I think like because I can use spoken word and I can use melody a little bit and I can use the rapping. I like to switch it up a lot and even change the length of a typical like hip hop verses. It depends, right? You know, it can be anywhere from like 12 bars to 16 bars, sometimes longer. I think longer is too long of talking a lot. I like to try to break it up. But I can play with like bridges where I'm saying something, not rapping, right? But like maybe saying something directly to the listener or just switching it up somehow in the introduction. I do switch it up. Sometimes I have a few songs where the chorus is first and then the verses come in, and somewhere the verses come right in, somewhere there's like there's an introduction. I try to switch it up a lot and even switch up my cadence, because I notice that rappers a lot of times tend to have this same cadence in every song, and I don't want to do that. Like I feel like every music calls for something, right? And I need to listen to what it's calling for, and I have with even the tone of my voice and then rhythmically how I'm speaking. I want to switch it up. Yeah. So I don't know if that if that really answers it. I really try to play with structure a lot. In the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. So I was writing lots of lyrics and my friend was helping me get them in the right, and then I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I understand. And so then started to play with that on my own. And even when I am doing spoken word, I play with song structure, and I will have a little refrain or hook in my poem, and maybe I am singing it, maybe not, but like I will play with that, and just, I don't know, just be open to it being whatever it is. I mean, even trying to write a song that's just one long verse might be a challenge, you know. That there's no, maybe the hook is just the instrumentation, right? And then there's the story song. I don't know, playing with different ways to approach it. I'm not sure if that's helpful, but yeah.
One of the comments in the chat was, what I do is listen to different music like Opeth. That is, I don't know who Opeth is. That is from Elgin, so I'm guessing it's death metal or something. I don't know. He'll correct me. But you know, when you can listen to like the Rolling Stones and hear opera, and you can listen to different, you can hear the different influences that come in. Do you find that you listen to really different music to try to, or do you pick up things from really different music styles and genres?
Sometimes like I'll be hearing a song on the radio and I'll actually record myself singing something else, but to that like melody or maybe that lyric inspired me, and then that's going to inspire a song I write. Like I'm not going to use exactly that, but I'm like, okay, this like really is different from what I was writing before, but like that sounds really cool, and I really love like how they have these soft violins here, and I could imagine myself singing something soft and on that subject. Just something like that.
I remember hearing a story. It was a story about Dave Brubeck and about how he was either, I don't know if it was Afghanistan or Morocco. He was somewhere really interesting traveling. And he was listening to folk music in that country, and the rhythm was nothing he had ever heard before. And he took it home and he put it in his music. And so that's why Dave Brubeck can come up, you know, his music will remind you of nothing you've ever heard before, and it sounds completely original, even though he did borrow it from someone else because he was exposed to something so different. I think that's really interesting that you can pull from different music, and maybe it doesn't sound anything like theirs, but it inspired something interesting and new in your own writing. That seems like a good way to get out of writer's block too, is make yourself listen to something crazy you would normally never listen to and see if it doesn't cause its own writing prompt. We are, okay, we are 1 minute out. So anybody have anything else they would like to share right now with musicians that are home? I know this time of day, people are still homeschooling kids, or if they're working from home, they're still working. So it might be on YouTube later when they see it, but anything else to share with musicians at home that are trying to write? Maybe they're stuck, maybe they're writing a ton.
I would say don't be so hard on yourself, because if you look at all the like music that we're listening to on the radio, a lot of times it's written by multiple writers, multiple producers, multiple people working on just that one thing. So the fact that any one person can write a song by themselves melodically and lyrically, that's a feat in itself. So consider like, oh, this isn't as good as like this one song I heard. Well, yeah, it was probably written by like 9 writers that all sat in a room and just wow, ideas. Let's go this way, let's go that way. It probably took a long time to write it and perfect it. So it's an equation, but your song is your equation, and mathematically, I'm sure it's correct.
Thank you. Desdamona, any last tips for people that are home right now, writing music, thinking about it?
I mean, really just, you know, Gigi said a lot there, you know, just don't be hard on yourself, right? And just let it come. And just maybe notice what emotions are rising right now, right? Think about what is it that you need right now, what is missing, and what is actually new that maybe you'd like to keep. I think all of those, you know, just being introspective and stuff, and really noticing this sort of ride that we're on. just going back to the ride of the music too, right? Like, and just let it, come when it needs to come. Know that you're probably processing a lot right now, and that you don't have to force it. And there's a lot out there now saying, oh, you should be being productive during this time. It's like, you should be living right now. Like, so let's not like beat each other up about what we should and shouldn't be doing. I think like, everybody's in a different place. Everybody's handling it in a different way. And if there's a way that you could help yourself through it by writing, or even perhaps help somebody else, I think that's what it's all about for me.
Thank you. Grace, any final parting words?
These two covered it so well. I echo everything. And I just can't emphasize enough that if that creation process supports you, do it, and be easy on yourself with whatever you come up with, and know that, like we mentioned before, maybe it doesn't make sense in this moment, whatever you create, but maybe it'll be really healing for you in the future, or maybe it'll make a lot of sense in the future. So just create without judgment, and let it be something that supports you during this weird time, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and that's a really real thing. Just take care of yourself.
Yeah. If you guys, would you like in the chat, would you just kind of write some links to your stuff? If it's your YouTube page or your website, just so we can find you again. And, someone had written about collaborating in songwriting. The Minnesota Music Coalition has a member page on Facebook. If you want to collaborate, post on there and find another member that might be interested in collaborating. It's so great to see your guys' faces and have a conversation. Who knew we'd be so desperate for that? But, that's a way to, find somebody on the Facebook page too and collaborate and meet somebody. Zoom membership is free. I think or a super cheap one, you can get a super basic one and talk to people if you're not going to just do FaceTime. But thank you guys so much for joining us here right now. It's just such weird days, and I appreciate so much that you joined us and are helping other musicians right now that are home. And it is funny, like you said about the productivity. If you don't feel like doing it, don't do it. I watch workout videos on my phone while I'm sitting on the sofa eating chips and top potato, because I don't feel like working out. I feel like eating chips dunked in top potato, and that is how that just goes right now. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it, because good Lord, I want chips. So take care of yourself, and you guys take care of yourselves too. Panelists, thank you so much for joining us. Grace, Gigi, and Desdamona, love you guys. Thank you, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.